Hello, my name is Will Stroll. I'm one of the sales engineers at .NET New Corporation, and this is a third video in my series of videos that are covering presentations and basically being a speaker. So in this one I'll be talking about some common tips to help you be more prepared as a speaker. I'm talking about the 6 P's. So the 6 P's is a slightly modified acronym that I learned during my time in the military, and it means prior proper planning prevents poor performance. I say that slow because I have to make sure I remove one of the P's. So this acronym can and should be used for everything in your life. The point behind this for today's purpose is as long as you do some very basic preparations before your presentation, everything should go just fine. And yes, that's me. Alright, so the first items you need to pay attention to in your planning are kind of common sense things, but they are crucial pieces of common knowledge to be properly prepared, regardless of the type of presentation you're going to give. So know yourself, and more importantly, know your limits. This is all about knowing who you are and what you're capable of in front of a crowd. Technology can and always will have moments where it gets the better of us. For example, there will be times when you simply cannot connect to a projector properly. This should be expected, though. What you should prevent though is introducing technology issues. If you're not familiar with a new software setup or a presentation gadget, you shouldn't use it. Give yourself time to practice using it on your own and with other people. So the worst presentations ever I had to sit through were those that had no element of storytelling. They were just slide after slide of information, and they had boring descriptions of everything that we were already looking at. Have one or more slides, or stories rather, prepared to highlight why certain points in slides are important. Prepare stories and analogies to help your audience relate to what you're trying to say. The best stories come from our own life too, so those kind of stories are especially great for icebreakers. Now, everyone has specific attributes that form how they speak to others and how they pronounce words and form sentences, and in some ways these attributes may or may not help our presentation skills. Regardless, you must be aware of the strength or weakness and account for it appropriately. If you know that the way you speak will come over as an accent to your audience, slow down. If you know that you often pronounce one or more words in a way that's not easily understood, adjust for it during the presentation, or before it rather. Above all, speak slowly. No matter how seasoned of a presenter you are, time appears to move much faster than it is actually moving. Even the most seasoned presenter will still get nervous in front of a crowd, and when this happens, you produce adrenaline. Time slows down from your own perception, but it doesn't for your audience. Remember that. So the same thing can happen for topics that you're excited about too. Slow down. Build in pauses. Repeat important points. Just remember to slow down. So probably the biggest mistake that anyone can make when presenting is trying to be funny. I say try because these people are usually the person that recognizes that they're funny in front of their friends. Unfortunately, that type of funny doesn't always translate well into a presentation. Sometimes it does. Just remember, comedians, they spend many years honing their craft to get everything just right. The words, the timing, the setup, the delivery. They write for months and years and spend countless hours in front of crowds and not getting laughs before they get all this skill honed to a point to what you end up seeing on a televised comedy special. If everyone could do it, we'd all be comedians, so don't try to be funny. But if you come across as that way, that's perfectly fine. So know your venue. This is, once again, one of the more important things and easy things that you can do. So first and foremost, what do you know, or do you know where it is? Do you know how to get there? Do you need lodging nearby? The last thing in the world that someone should have to worry about is getting there late or rushing to the event. And either section would not only reflect poorly upon you, but it would definitely affect your presentation, and generally not in a good way. So do you need an internet connection for your presentation? If there is internet, are you allowed to connect to it? Will there be enough bandwidth for what you need to do? Will there be any firewall or security issues to prevent you from connecting to certain things? Things like VPN could be something you can't use, or connecting to an SQL server. You should be mindful of those things and test. As a speaker, we are initially more or less comfortable with specific types of rooms. Some like to have a desk to sit behind. Some like to have a lectern. Others would prefer to have neither. But will you be on a stage? Do you have a room to walk around? Or, the reality is that there's a right environment for a speaker, regardless to preference, and that environment depends on the type of presentation you're giving and the audience you'll be speaking to. But not all venues will give you a choice on these. You will instead need to inquire and plan for whatever environment you'll be speaking in. Other questions for a speaker might include asking if there's a practice room, or if there's a place to put your things while you're presenting. So speakers also need to be aware of how the audience will be presented to them. Will they be sitting in chairs? Is there a lab environment? Is it a conference room? Is the seating comfortable for your attendees? Is the room the right size for the expected number of attendees? All these things can help and how to adjust to the how your audience is perceiving everything. And that leads me to the next thing, the ambience. So there's a lot of things about your presentation room that you should need to know. Some of them have already been mentioned, but there are still things that should potentially need to be known, so you can be as prepared as you can be. So, for example, is the heating or air conditioner controlled? Is the event more laid back, or is it more highly professional? Is there a dress code? Should you wear business casual or suit or polo jeans or shirt, and what will your audience be wearing? You should probably dress just slightly better than your audience, at least. So, know your audience. Great segue, right? So, this isn't a comprehensive list, but it definitely should help you get started. So first, who is in your audience? How many people will there be? Are there any key individuals that you need to know more about than the others? If this is for any type of sales, is there someone that you need to impress more than the others? Do you need to tailor anything specific to any of the people that you might want to single out? The interests of your audience is incredibly important. Are they technical minded or are they design minded? Are they web savvy? Are they a standard business person or stay-at-home mom or a mix somewhere in between? You can use this information to plan to relate to them through something in pop culture, local news, or sports. Do you think the core of the audience has a good sense of humor? Believe me, depending on the type of presentation you're planning, you can indeed run into a very dry audience, and that's never fun. So skill levels are more important in some types of presentations than others. If you have technical content planned for a non-technical audience, you should have your presentation completely tailored for them. Speak at a higher level. Don't show code or configuration views. Change the terminology you use. Describe steps in greater detail. Maybe even rip out some content altogether. But if the opposite is true, you should plan for the opposite as well and adjust it for the same reasons. So background is such an important piece of knowing your audience. Where do they come from? Are they part of a specific industry? Can they relate to your standard phrases or examples? As an example, if you have an audience from Spain, it probably wouldn't make any sense to use phrases and examples from American football. If they get the phrase at all, they know immediately that you didn't pay attention to who they are or what their needs are. If they don't get the phrase at all, then you really have failed from connecting with them completely. While this example, though, crosses international borders, the same examples can be made within your own region as well. So environmental elements should definitely be taken into account. Are you presenting first thing in the morning or in the afternoon? People's attention spans can be completely different in these time slots, especially right after lunch. So is anything presented before or after you? Do you need to beef up the beginning or end of your presentation? Are you at a speaking convention, or are you speaking at a convention rather? Do you need to account for environmental variables at the convention? Is there wireless? Are you competing with Twitter? These are all great questions, but the bottom line is your audience distracted or influenced by anything environmental at the venue or event? And is this something that you need to plan for? Because you can. So know your topic. I think this goes without saying. But I said before, nobody is actually an expert. I said that in a previous video. But you can definitely be a subject matter expert. This doesn't mean that you will know everything that there is to know about the subject matter, but you definitely have done your due diligence. You've researched the topic. You've put yourself through live examples if possible. You've seen what other people's experience are with the topic. You also may not know the deepest details of the topic, but you've done enough research to feel comfortable discussing them at a high level. Anticipating questions is one of the keys to becoming a subject matter expert, because it forces you to think about the subject in a way that your audience may be thinking of it. They will not have the same perspective on the topic as you do when you first sit down. So inquisitive minds will be looking for holes in your statements, and they'll be interested in the how and the why, and getting from point A to point B. So less familiar people will just have questions because they don't understand the topic to begin with. You should be able to anticipate these things. So having an organic flow can do a great deal for you to prevent questions and introduce topics and ideas in a way that actually answers questions before they have a chance to become a question. So this same flow can be whatever allows you to have a story, even in a technical presentation. Story-like presentations are always better received, and stay in the memory longer than a presentation that's created in any other way. So every presentation that is interactive will have one or more people that will want to challenge points you make for any number of reasons. Sometimes it's just curiosity, and other times they're simply trying to be difficult. But regardless, it's your duty to know why your ideas are better or preferred over another. You should definitely be well versed in the pros and cons. Now, unless your idea is so groundbreaking that nobody has tried it yet, it's always a great idea to be able to cite resources as well as real-world examples that illustrate your ideas in a positive light. So if we're talking about mobile websites, you should be able to pull up an example of a mobile website right on the fly. Now, when most people think of scripts and presentations, they think of their presentations to be pre-written word for word. That definitely doesn't need to be the case, but look at any well-known presenter or actor. Unless you're doing an improv exercise, a script has always been written before the final presentation that you see. Your own presentation shouldn't be very different. Now, for presentations, your script doesn't have to be written word for word. In fact, it's often frowned upon. Having a word-for-word script usually leads to presenters actually reading their script instead of presenting their ideas, because those are not the same. If you have a well-defined bullet point style script that lists all the points you want to hit, that's fine. This allows you to have a script containing bullet points without boring your audience with the actual bullet points themselves. Instead, you're keeping their attention by telling or showing them a presented story based upon your script. You're elaborating on the bullets. One of the most powerful benefits of a script is that it forces you to give more thought into what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. So if you've never written a script for your presentation before, you have no idea what you're missing. The thought process behind writing a script will change your presentation completely. Now, having written a script in front of you always allows you to see your flow. It gives you a chance before a live presentation to see what you're going to say. It engages a different part of your brain, and that part will catch things that you didn't anticipate before. This allows you to have a great way to practice your presentation consistently, and if it's done right, you can use this practice to review how your script sounds to make adjustments as necessary. Now, collaboration is often the last thing that people think about when building a presentation. Sometimes it's even embarrassing for some of us, but it's always a good idea to run your presentation by somebody before actually doing it live in front of your audience. Having a script allows people to see what you're going to talk about and when. This makes it easier for them to visualize the flow and the content of the presentation. Though it's always a good idea to actually do your presentation for somebody else too before the live audience, even if that person is yourself and a video camera. Now, sharing your presentation is not always an option, but when it is, a script allows you to build a world-class presentation and still maintain the integrity of the content when the presentation is passed from person to person. Otherwise, even the worst presentation with bullet points may not accurately convey the point you're trying to make. Now, if you don't learn anything else during your career presenting, know this: bad things happen. Projectors are lost or broken or can't be connected to. Internet connections are secured or inaccurate. There may not be enough seats for your audience. Your slide deck file might get corrupted or lost. Your technical demo might not be able to run. Anything can happen, and sooner or later it definitely will. I've seen everything from slides missing at a business presentation to a laptop dying completely at a major convention keynote. This will happen to you too eventually. It's up to you to have a plan to be able to elegantly recover from disaster. Now, it's always a great idea to host a final copy of your slide presentation in multiple places. I'll often have it ready on my computer, on a thumb drive in my pocket, and also in a place on the internet where I can download it in a jam. I've also seen others go as far as to have multiple thumb drives, with the other copies being given to coworkers or friends at the venue, just in case. These people have obviously had more than one thing go wrong with their presentation in the past, so they're definitely preparing. Now, handouts are also a great complement to any presentation. I'll usually have, or save mine rather, for the end of the presentation, so I don't allow them to distract my attendees, but they're a great tool to reinforce content for your presentation. They can also be used instead of your slide deck if anything goes missing for some reason, or if you don't have a projector, power goes out, or any number of other things go wrong. But more importantly, they're a great tool for somebody to walk away with at the end of your presentation. Now, if you're doing technical presentations, doing them on a virtual drive will allow you to be more mobile than in the event than if your own laptop dies. I've seen people be able to switch from somebody else's laptop at the last second on many occasions, saving them from canceling the presentation altogether. This was only possible because their technical presentation was put together on a virtual drive, and in that virtual drive was saved to an external hard drive. When you actually see this happen in person and see a presenter recover gracefully from this kind of hardware failure, it really is an amazing sight. Now, probably the most common issues in presentation environments is that you as a presenter cannot connect to a projector that is provided to you. In these cases, having your own projector would have saved you from some embarrassing troubleshooting and wasting time. And wasted time could mean a lost deal or worse, a loss of respect for you as a speaker. Even though it's not warranted, many attendees will be so distracted and frustrated at this kind of situation that they'll discount everything you say from that point forward. If you simply pull out your spare projector and hook it up, you'll definitely impress your audience. Unfortunately, that's not an option for every demo environment, but I'm going to be talking briefly about a presentation kit next. Now, some people put together a presentation kit of sorts. This kit is nothing more than a bag containing all the common items that might be needed for a presentation at a venue. Your kit would contain anything that you need to allow you or another person to present and have failover options in the event that something goes wrong. So some of the things that you might consider putting in the kit are an extra projector, evaluation forms, extension cord, maybe a surge protector. So when including monitor cables and adapters, it's important to consider multiple scenarios for environments you might find yourself in. Even if they include non-standard video connections, you just never know. You might end up doing presentation on somebody's MacBook Air or on a flat screen TV instead of projector. A tablet and writing utensils allows you to have a way to write down any last-minute notes before, during, or after the presentation. Presentation clickers are perfect tools for a speaker like yourself. They don't do much for a technical demonstration, but they will allow you as a presenter to focus on the audience and not on your computer or your mouse. If you get used to using one, you'll look like a pro, and your audience will definitely appreciate it. Evaluation forms are only useful for a specific type of presentation, such as those given at conferences and user groups, but they're a great way to get feedback from your audience. If you as a presenter don't know your audience, how your audience felt about a presentation, then you'll never know what you should focus on to get better the next time you present, and especially for that same topic. If your venue doesn't provide feedback forms for you, set some out for your audience. As long as your presentation is not the kind that is the kind that would warrant it, rather. If your presentation is about selling your products or services, that's probably not a good idea. Now, the number one thing that you can do above all else, or all other tips rather, is to rehearse. This is an absolute must for anyone. Even people that you know would be labeled as a professional speaker, they rehearse and they do it a lot. Believe it or not, if you go through your presentation as if you're in front of an audience, you will uncover all kinds of issues and tweaks that you'll need to make. These could include the timing of demos or slides, or the order or flow of your presentation, how your posture is, and more. Ideally, you should also try to rehearse within the actual venue that you'll be speaking. If you have a chance to test your connection to the internet, the projector, the sound system, and more. So above all, you'll feel more comfortable in that space when it comes time to do your actual presentation in front of your actual audience. Now, in other cases, you might be able to actually practice your presentation in front of a live audience. These are fun. Comedians do this all the time. They first practice materials to themselves and over, and then they do this until they feel they have it right. And finally, they perform this material in front of countless audiences before you ever see these jokes in a comedy special or in a large venue. You might have this kind of opportunity too. If you're going to present at a large event, try locating smaller audiences and venues to test your presentation against. For example, in this picture you see a .NET Nuke World 2011 speaker, Peter Donker. He's doing that very same thing here at a user group in Orlando the day before the event. First of all, know yourself, and more importantly, know your limits. Know your venue. Know the things that you need to know about your venue beforehand. Know your audience. Know things about them. Know where they're from. Know their background. Know what they're interested in. Know your topic. Anticipate questions. Have a flow. Have a script. Make sure that you at least know your talking points. Plan for disaster. Things will go wrong. Make sure you have a way to recover. And then finally, rehearse. Make sure you have a way to get from point A to point B, and that you've done it at least once or a couple times.